What's your biggest issue with Christianity that you just don't like?
I think my main thing with Christianity is I just don't believe it's true. I don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. I don't believe that the Bible is anything more than just, a series of lessons that probably should just be taken that way. I mean, when I was a kid, I was really raised in like a Christian household, and my parents made me go to church all the time. And even as a real young kid, I had this almost like physical resentment towards going into that environment. I just kind of like sensed that it wasn't for me from a really young age. But then as I started to get older, I started to realize that a lot of people weren't really as serious as I was about it, in the sense that like I looked at the teachings of the Bible that I was learning about in Sunday school or whatever, even though I wasn't like particularly thrilled about the church experience, I still felt like, okay, I should be trying to figure out what this is all about. And as time goes on, and I started to realize, like, oh, all the other kids that I am going to Sunday school with aren't as serious about this, or they don't think, like, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who was basically like, saying something about wanting to have sex with this girl. And I remember being like, okay, but you're not married. And like, we go to church. Like, are you, like, you can't do that, right? And he was like, what? No, of course I would still do it. And I'm like, oh, so we both go to church, but I'm over here assuming that we got to take the gospel literally. And then I remember when I was like 13, one of my friends just like introduced me to the Satanic Bible, which is by no means the entry point to atheism that I would recommend for anybody, because it's kind of goofy and ridiculous, and it's from like 80 years ago or whatever. But I remember reading it and just being like, oh, okay, like this is where I'm at. Like, I don't believe in God. I don't think any of this stuff is true. And I actually think that you can live a completely moral and, pristine life without the Bible. And ever since then, yeah, I turned my back on it. And it's actually kind of weird, because I feel like even though they've never admitted it to this day, I think that I kind of turned my parents atheists too, because I would just always be presenting them with the newest religious argument that I read online, because this is like the very early days of the internet, where I'd be looking up stuff about atheism all the time. And I think it kind of got to my parents, because when I really think about it, I haven't heard them really mention anything regarding religion in the last 20 years or so, even though if they were here right now, they would say, like, you didn't convince us of anything. Like, of course not. Like,
Yeah.
but I do think that I had a bit of that impact on my parents too.
Yeah. So your entry point to atheism was the Satanic Bible.